Hi, I thought I'd give a process of how I do sound effects mastering. So starting from the get-go, when I pull stuff off a recorder, I'll name my files such as raw, my abbreviation, date, modeled year, month, day, and then whatever the subject of the recording was. So in this case, it's slingshots. And then I'll make a Pro Tools session. I just got that started so we didn't have to watch loading, but I'll name it basically the exact same thing except edit is my first word instead of raw. And then my exports folder is basically just all that minus edit or raw. So it's just, in this case, Kai, year, day. So getting into Pro Tools, I'll import all the tracks from my recording session. And in this case, I recorded with the F8 and I had dual channel record on. So I'll have, these are individually two mono channels, not stereo, even though it might look like stereo. And then I have basically these two, except recorded at a lower level. So I'll name all this is raw CH1 high, oops, CH2 high, what is this, CH1 low, CH2 low. And then I'll make a duplicate of these tracks, hide and activate these, so if I need to go back, I can. And I actually know from checking out these files earlier that these low tracks are kind of redundant because I got my high tracks at a level where I'm not distorting anything that I didn't want to distort. So next I'll name this raw CH1, raw CH2. Then we'll make 4 more tracks to edit with, and we'll call this edit CH1, edit CH2, and final CH1, CH2. Cool. We'll color these tracks. What is this? Red, yellow, yellow, and green. And I'm going to start with this last recording because I got most usable material. So I'll first start by bringing down these two channels, and I'll make a group and call this edit. So now my edit cursor basically works on both channels at the same time. And what I'm going to do is take a quick listen to one of these recordings, set my outputs all correct from the get-go. Great. Cool. Sounds fun. So first off, before I do anything, I'll start by kind of getting the general levels where I want them. So it's kind of neat. So that sounds good. Let's just see what happens when I do a little, oops, copy and paste the clip gain there. Looks like this one's peaking a little bit. Just gonna turn that down. Alright, just for the sake of expedience, I'm going to just focus on this one. So I'd bring in this whole clip normally in denoise, but I'm just going to cut this recording down arbitrarily for this example down to 3 so I can just keep track of everything easier. And I'm going to individually pull these clips into isotope. Wait on that to open. Cool. And so from the get-go, it's a pretty clean recording. But we do have some stuff like this rumble down here. I don't know what these three things are, and I don't really want them. So it doesn't look like any of this information, up here overlap. So I could either EQ it out with a roll off, or I'll just select and silence that. So that's using Shift S. And then I'll go through. I don't really like these three things. I don't know what they are. So what I'm going to do is attenuate those. And I turned on instant process attenuate, and attenuate is based on the spectral repair. I'm going up because if I go down, it's going to cut into this like non-existent stuff. I keep my strength usually at 1 to start, and then if I need to do more, I'll do more. So that didn't really get rid of it, so I'm just going to turn it up to like maybe a 3, which is pretty high. Yeah, so that's just going to basically fade into the background. You won't be able to hear it. So let's do that. Cool. I'm guessing these lines here, can't really hear them. We got these two. Oops, zoomed in a little far. We have these two little bands right here. So what I'm going to do is zoom in enough where I can select it. And I want this top line to basically ride the line. I'm going to select the number down here on the high frequency. Go to dehum, paste that in at 200, and render it. I could probably tighten up my Q. Let's do that at 400. And that might look like it's taking out a lot, but when you zoom out, you can't really even tell that you did anything. You see a tiny little dip down there. And we'll do the same thing up here. Ultimately, the process I'm doing is practically inaudible, so it doesn't really matter that much, especially at 38,000 hertz where there's no information and no one's going to hear anything unless you pitch it down. So we'll dehum again. Great. Looks good. Let's give this the old denoise. Take that, select spectral denoise. Alright, so I usually work with curves, and I'll just take this. Kind of my goal is to make my noise floor kind of flat without kind of eating into the actual recording itself. So let's turn this up a little bit. From the get-go, the noise floor from where I was recording is pretty low, so I don't really have to worry about that much. I feel like starting at 12 is a little high, so I'm going to turn this down to maybe like 8, because effectively once the curve is applied, that's like maybe minus 20 or something like that. I'm just kind of saying that arbitrarily, but you get what I mean. It's denoising stronger where your curve is turned down. So our noise background looks pretty flat when I render on that test section, so let's see what that does to the actual recordings. Sound pretty good. And I might take a little bit more time to get rid of some artifacty kind of things. Like you can see there's a little bit of rumble down there, or like there's some of these little like bits of air that are coming out, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I think the signal noise ratio is pretty good. So I'll render that in. It's looking pretty clean, looking pretty good. And just taking a listen. I can probably milk this a little bit more with brush free. So I'm going to do that. Brush 3D. See if this chokes it at all. Oops. Let's turn this down like to 60 or something like that. Yeah, that's fine. I think I lost a little bit of gain from doing that, so I'm going to just turn it up a smidge. Cool. Sound pretty good. So next I'll zoom in, and usually, depending on what it is, so like for something like this where it's a single sound effect, I'll cut out spaces, and my reasoning for that is when we re-render it, it'll have everything will be kind of spaced out nicely, but also if I bring it back into Pro Tools, I can use strip silence, and I'll be able to turn everything into single sound effects and line it up a little bit easier later on. So. So for expedience of time, I do the same process, and I leave everything spaced out the same way. So when I master these on my second channel or whatever, it'd be something like that. I could take everything when it's grouped like this. Let's turn that into 1 second. Do that. So now both these have the exact same timing. Let's pretend I put fades on that. Then bring this all down and render it all. And basically I could have like A and B of the same file, so. So assuming I wanted to keep all this, which realistically I wouldn't, but I could have it so it's all time aligned the same way. That's probably not that important for this set of recordings, but in general, it's kind of a nice thing when you can bring in 2 different layers that are recorded at the exact same time and have them all line up and stuff, so you can be able to choose performances. But like I was saying with strip silence, you could do something like this. Turn down that, and let's extend the handles a little bit. So when I bring it in, I could do something like that. And then I could re-export all this as single channels or single waveforms using a sampler or something like that. Or I just have a little bit more flexibility with having them spaced out like that. For things like, let's say, recorded a cloth pass or something like that, they're logging. I probably wouldn't want to do that because then you're kind of losing out on small movements and stuff. But yeah, so at this point within Pro Tools, I'd rename my files something like quarter whiz buys shooting quarter. Oops. You didn't see that. Shooting quarter with slingshot buzzing with whiz by bullet. Just call it that. CXT. And then I'll export everything into this folder. And that basically at this point, since that's a description or like how I want it, how I want my files structured for description, and I have the microphone position kind of labeled here with a semicolon, which can be a regular expression. I can take this into SoundMiner and I can build out most of my fields pretty quickly because of that. So it really only takes a couple seconds out of Pro Tools to master or to do all the metadata and mastering stuff. So yeah, that's basically the process.